Hey guys, Marzinkin here, bringing another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video. And so with the release of the Frieza event and that Namek Saga DB story update, we basically have gotten all of the content now from what was part 1 of the Frieza celebration over on JP. In fact, I say part 1. The Frieza celebration didn't have a part 2 on JP because, of course, it came out between the end of the anniversary and Saiyan Day. So we find ourselves now moving into that period on Global where we will be expecting the next release sometime within the next week or so. Now, unfortunately for Global, this period before the anniversary, before the countdown really kicks off, is always kind of like a dry period. You know, you can see here, like, this is last year's schedule, right? So this MVP 17 EZA came out. This is where Bardock's EZA was, roughly. Then we had a Prime Battle LR EZA, which I don't think we have anything that takes the place of this. I guess you'd put, like, the Frieza event and that in here. And then, like, if you think about the gaps between content, we've got an EZA, and then it was the 20th of June that the Part 2 LR came out in 2023, which was Super Buu, which means for 2 weeks, from the 6th of June, for 2 weeks, the content we had on Global was one EZA, the Extreme Z area for Cell, and a stage of Super Battle Road for like 2 weeks. So unfortunately, this period on Global is always kind of dead, which is a little bit of a shame, but I mean, there's not unfortunately very much we can do about that. But we are getting to the point where the next bit of content is going to be coming out within the next week or so. The Part 2 LR, as I say, released on the 20th of June, which is actually a week from today. Now, I think because the Frieza event came out yesterday, I would be maybe expecting the Part 2 LR to come out on the 19th. It could even come out on the 18th because Tuesday morning in the UK is very often a time when content drops. So sometime within the next week, we should be getting the Part 2 LR. But of course, the question that is on most global players' minds at the moment is, what is that LR going to be? Like, which unit are we actually going to get? Because there are a couple of options. And basically, we can take a look at going by the previous schedule. There is, of course, the #1 most expected character, which you can see here, right? So Super Buu came out as the Part 2 LR for 2023, came out on Global 20th of June, but he released on JP as the Part 2 LR during the April Dokkan Fest celebration, which at that time for JP was Kale. So if we take a look at the timeline from JP, we take a look at April, this is where we have the Topo celebration. And we drop down to the Part 2 LR, and the Part 2 LR is Captain GINYU. So if we're just going by the same old patterns as the previous years, where we get this Part 2 LR from the April celebration, then the release for Global should be the LR GINYU Force. Now, the interesting thing about the LR GINYU Force coming out now for Global is the fact that when you look at their passive and everything, so these guys, they lead GINYU Force or Special Pose. They have the Rock, Paper, Scissors 12 key super, which is kind of fun, right? It's 12 to 14 key. I think you have the possibility to get, is it Raccoon or Guldo? And then like 15 to 17 key, it can be Jace or Berta, and they have different super attack effects based on which one you can get, which is a fun mechanic. It can also be frustrating because one of the abilities you can get, which I think is if you get the 17 key, if you get Berta appear, you get a greatly raising defense, which is an infinite stack. So of course, this is the ideal one to get because you're not only greatly raising your defense, but you're keeping that buff. So obviously it can be a little bit frustrating if you are using this unit and, you know, you keep getting the 12 key. Say you're getting 15 to 17 key, but you just never get the Berta to appear. It's an effect that you're never actually going to see. But overall, like, the status effects and everything, the super attack effects that they have are pretty good. Their 18 key super massively raises attack and defense for 1 turn, which is a 100% buff, so that's really good. Mega colossal damage, and it raises all allies attack and defense by 30% for 1 turn. And then, yeah, they come into the fight. They give all allies 25% attack and defense for 3 turns when there are 5 or more special pose allies on the team. So obviously if you're running like a GINYU Force team, then these guys are basically going at their full potential. They're going to be very, very strong, giving lots of support, basically all that good stuff, everything that we want to see. We also have they guard when all allies attacking in the same turn a special pose. They have damage reduction per special pose character on the team. So you can kind of see where I'm going with this, I'm sure, that for global, this releasing in this time slot is actually nowhere near as effective as when this unit released on JP. Because as it stands right now, the special pose team on global, I mean, it's pretty non-existent, right? It's like a few Gotenks, you've got the Gammas on there, then there's the GINYU Force. You know, apart from these guys releasing, the GINYU Force is a very outdated team at this point. And of course, it was Topo's release on JP that gave a bunch of buffs to the special pose team. So these guys would go really, really well on Topo's team, especially with some of the sub EZAs and stuff like that that came out with Topo as well. Whereas, you know, Global isn't going to have those units when these guys come out, if they are going to be the next unit, right? Because we have Topo, I'm pretty sure his part 2 character, the guy whose name I always forget how to say, Kato Pesla, I'm pretty sure he's on special pose as well. And then we had like the Int Gotenks EZA, Global of course already has that, but we got the AGL Gotenks sub EZA, we got the Int Topo Pride Troopers, even the physical Ribrienne who can go with the LR like Ribrienne Trio. Like these guys are all on that special pose team, give that team a huge amount of buffs. And of course you have to remember as well that the JP side with some of the buffs that they got from the celebration have from the anniversary celebration have the unique equips for the Gammas, as well as the LR Gammas who are on special pose. So the special pose team on JP, when the GINYU Force LR came out, was considerably better than what the special pose team looks like on global right now. So these guys coming out as the part 2 LR for global, this is basically the last thing that comes out right before the anniversary. But realistically, like, they'll still be decent, like, fun unit to use, and on the right team setup they can look really, really good. But realistically, their only good team setup, I guess you would say, on global is going to be the GINYU Force, which is very outdated, right? I mean, if you have all the summonable units, right, there's the GINYU Force mission for the Freezer event that we did yesterday. I mean, these guys would absolutely crush it if you were running the team that has the actual AGL GINYU leader, Rakumen Guldo, like the actual summonable units that buff out that team. These guys would obviously be very, very good there. But yeah, outside of that, like, there's, you know, they give all allies the support for 5 turns from their intro, 3 turns, but then the rest of their support is for special pose allies. As long as they pick up an Int or a Rainbow Orb, they're giving special pose allies this extra support. And then they do have their active skill, which can be activated when all allies are GINYU Force starting from the 3rd turn, or when all allies are special pose starting from the 5th turn. So you obviously can't even use their active skill if you're using them outside of a special pose team or GINYU Force team, which is technically a special pose team. But so these guys are very, very niche, and without there being any extra like special pose buffs on global, it definitely seems like this GINYU Force LR will be kind of a flat release, which is a little bit unfortunate. Now, they did also drop with the Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks Super EZA, which of course Global does not have. So there is the possibility that this could drop with whatever the Part 2 LR is, if it is the GINYU Force. But the other option, of course, as we've talked about a few times on like the streams and in some of the previous videos, is the fact that Global could get the same Part 2 LR as JP instead of the GINYU Force, or even as well as the GINYU Force. Because remember, JP is in the middle of the physical Rosé celebration, which is a celebration that has already happened on Global, except JP has gotten a bunch of extra stuff coming out as part of it, right? The physical Goku Black Super EZA, which as of this time of recording, like, we still have no idea when that's going to come to Global. We did get the Trunks, right? They gave Rosé a banning unit Trunks, and they just put him on the Freezer banner so that he was coming out on Global at roughly the same time. I think the banner was the day after Rosé came out on JP. So he came out on Global at around the same time. But then they haven't done that with the Super EZA, so it kind of leaves up in the air what Global's plan is in terms of giving us the content that came out with the Part 2, or, you know, with just Rosé's celebration in general. how are we going to get that content on global when we've already had the Rosé celebration? So one of the things that I've seen a few people say, Minato mentioned it on the podcast, is the fact that we could get a yellow coin banner on global that had both the LRs, the Ginyu Force and whoever the Part 2 LR is for JP, which of course would then mean we're actually caught up with JP on yellow coin LRs, which would make sense because while global has the anniversary, JP has the Tanabata celebration, which is a Dokkan Fest exclusive LR and then a Carnival LR. And then not long after that, we'll be going into the worldwide celebration. So there is actually, we would still remain like level on yellow coin LRs if global actually received both. Now, it's not something that they've done for a while. They used to do the Part 2 LR banners for the anniversary in that format, where it was one banner. It was called like a top legendary summon, and it had 2 new LRs on it. They could do that. I think that would be kind of cool. Obviously, there's the options that we get the Part 2 LR at the same time as JP, and we don't get the GINYU Force yet, and the GINYU Force is put in somewhere else further down the line. Or, of course, as we've gone over here with this timeline, there is just the possibility that we get the LR GINYU Force. Maybe we get the Tech Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks Super Easy A, but then that is essentially it in terms of the content that we get for global. So, who knows? Let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. I know I've seen a couple of people in the stream chats saying that they were kind of interested in, or at least even hyped for, the LR Ginyu Force. It is a tricky one because, as I say, they are the character that release right before the anniversary. Like going back to this timeline of events from last year, we have the Super Boo release, then we had a World Tournament, and then literally straight after that, that's when we go into the actual, like, the beginning of the anniversary, right? So it is something to consider that if you were interested in the Ginyu Force, they are the last banner that comes out before the anniversary, which is probably what you want to be saving your stones for. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. Are we getting the Ginyu Force next? Are we going to get the same Part 2 LR as JP? Or do you think we are actually going to get both on one banner? Let me know your thoughts down below. Let me know, would you summon for Ginyu? Would you summon for the Part 2 LR on JP if the unit is good enough? Let me know all of your thoughts in the comment section. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Masked Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check out the links down below, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.